Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to virtual office hours. Just a few quick notes before we get started today. Feel free to chat with one another. We'll have a live chat in YouTube, and there will be open commenting on Facebook. We know that you will, but please be respectful of all members of the Colburn community. If you have any feedback or questions about the event, feel free to email us at parents@colburnschool.edu. And finally, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to Virtual Office Hours. I'm your host, Michelle Yamamoto, the Manager of Alumni and Parent Relations here at the Colburn School. Just a little bit of background for those of you that are joining us for the first time. Virtual Office Hours is our current iteration of the Office Hour series, which is a monthly pop-up for the entire community to come together. It's usually on the Colburn Plaza between the Grand and Olive buildings, and we usually have coffee and treats, so I hope you're keeping up that vibe. I am keeping up that vibe. And by the way, it's fall, so if you need a good apple cider donut recipe, feel free to email me, myamamoto@colburnschool.edu. So we've made it to the end of October, which means that we're more than halfway through the fall semester, if you can believe it. That doesn't mean that we're done with performances or curriculum, and I'll show you everything that's coming up when we take a look at the November calendar in a little bit, but let's open up this session with a performance. So this is the final movement of Beethoven's Sonata No. 10 for violin and piano, featuring Martin Beaver on violin and Fabio Bedini on piano. And this was the conclusion of our Serving of Beethoven lunchtime concert series just this past week. Enjoy. So now let's take a look back at October at Colburn. So beginning with our performances, we hosted 2 masterclasses featuring students from across the school. We wrapped up our Serving of Beethoven lunchtime concerts, which you just watched the finale of. And we kicked off our Colburn Artist Series this past Sunday with alumnus and pianist Rodolfo Leone, and I'll screen a little bit of that for you later as well. We've also had some internal events in our units, so Friday night recitals have resumed every Friday in the community school, and Music Academy has started up its Young Artist Performance Series. We refer to it as MyApp, so I'm sorry if I slip on that in the future. And those performances are keeping us pretty busy as well, so if you're a member of those units, I hope you've been able to attend and enjoy the live music. In terms of school news, the Alumni Office just released a new episode of our podcast called So How's That Going? And this new episode features alumni from the Dance Academy, the Conservatory, and the Community School, as well as Jasmine Morales, who is our Assistant Director in the Center for Innovation and Community Impact. So we talked about the pandemic, social justice issues, and the state of the performing arts today, right now, given all of their different and diverse perspectives. I'm really proud of this episode, and I hope that you are able to enjoy the conversations as well. You can listen to it at colburnschool.edu/sohowsthatgoing, and you can listen to the previous 2 episodes there as well. And we have finally released information about our new partnership with the Sphinx organization. So Sphinx is a nonprofit organization based in Detroit that's dedicated to transforming lives through the power of diversity in the arts. And this is designed as a long-term collaborative partnership between our organizations as a way to better engage, develop, and empower young artists of color throughout their journeys. We're looking at providing scholarships for some of the junior division winners of their Sphinx competition. We're looking at a residency of their chamber music orchestra, the Sphinx Virtuosi, and we're also going to play the host for their Sphinx lead cohort in the coming years, which is their professional empowerment program for arts leaders of color. There's a lot of details. You can read more about this partnership in the announcement that's on our website now. We just posted it on Facebook and YouTube, and I'll be sure to include the links in the comments for this event as well. So November is coming up. First thing I will say is let's not forget Election Day is around the corner. November 3rd, it's this coming Tuesday. If you haven't already voted and you're eligible to vote, please be sure to check out vote.org for more information on your ballot, how to vote, what you need to know, everything you need to prepare. That's vote.org. Now, we can take a look at November at Colburn. So if anyone is interested in getting a copy of this calendar, I've actually posted it to the parents page on our website at colburnschool.edu/parents. I'm just going to go through it really quickly. Tune In Tuesdays continues through November. So these are our lunchtime bite-sized performances from the vault. Often it's Colburn Orchestra, but it could be any number of ensembles or past performances, so keep an eye out for that. On November 7th, that's next Saturday, we have our parent info session on Suzuki at Colburn. So if you're a family that's preparing to apply, or if you're just interested in learning more about the program generally, feel free to join us. We'll be in the Zoom meeting with our area coordinators for that program in violin, cello, and guitar. So they're going to give us a short presentation and then take all of your questions. Please note that registration is required for this event, so you can find that link again at colburnschool.edu/parents. I've listed the events and included the registration links there. That same day, we're going to be premiering a new work from Apsara Kasaraman, a student composer in the Community School of Performing Arts. So this premiere will be live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and we'll have a Q&A with the composer that same day. Apsara was invited by Musical Mentors Collaborative to write a composition for their project Requiem 20, a musical response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So she was asked to write a piece of music that expressed how the pandemic made her feel. Congratulations, Apsara. We're really excited to premiere this, and I hope you can all join us at 3 p.m. that day. Another note on the 7th is the community school's musical minuettos curriculum will start its second round. These are short 3 to 4 week mini classes for early childhood families. So if you're interested in that, make sure to check it out on the community school page under early childhood. On Sunday, November 8th, we have another masterclass with violist Nobuko Imai. There wasn't information on the event listing in the calendar yet, but check back for that if you're interested. It should be up soon on our calendar page. The Anonymous Lover, our co-production with LA Opera, is going to be premiering at 5 p.m. on November 14th. That's a Saturday. You can get your free tickets at laopera.org. Just head over to that website. If you've noticed, virtual office hours is on the calendar a little bit earlier than normal, and that's because we're making way for this gold bar at the bottom, which is Thanksgiving break. So there will not be classes in the units during those days to make way for the holidays. And I've included one last event here. It's technically in December, but I figured I'd give you a heads up since registration is open now. We're hosting another parent info session, this time on early childhood pathways. So if you are about to enroll in early childhood, if you're in early childhood, or if you're about to age out, you should join us to learn more about all of the opportunities that your student has once they are done with the early childhood programming, because we have a lot of different programs that they can go into, and we'll have faculty talking about what ages are appropriate for those programs, when to start thinking about enrolling, and they'll also be taking questions from families. So again, registration is required for that event, but you can find that link at colburnschool.edu/parents. And the other thing I want to point out is this blue bar that's stretching across the top of the calendar. So South Coast Plaza is hosting its Pavilion of Holiday Trees fundraiser, and we've been invited to join a small group of arts organizations decorating trees so we can decorate our own Colburn holiday tree. These trees will be judged by a panel and then auctioned off, and the highest bid will come back to us as a donation. And the judges' top 3 trees will be awarded up to $10,000. So this is a chance for you to break out the craft kits, show your creative side, and help us raise some extra money for the virtual program and transitional work that's going on here in the school. Here's a little bit more about the decorating guidelines, about the do's and don'ts. And again, I will be posting this as part of the calendar on the parents page of our website. So don't fret copying all of this down. Feel free to take a screenshot. You can send your decorations in by mail, or, and this relates to the blue bar on the calendar, you can drop them off. We will have a decoration drop box on campus between November 4th and 8th. It's a no contact drop box just inside one of our parking gates. So if you have any questions about this, you can contact the advancement department at advancement@colburnschool.edu. You can also email me and I'll pass your question along. That's parents@colburnschool.edu. And again, all of this information will be available on the parents page at colburnschool.edu/parents. And I'll include all of those links in the chat as well. So that's everything coming up in November, everything I could find anyway. Before we get started with our conversations around college prep and admissions, let's take a break and hear a little bit more music. This is William Grant Still's Summerland from his 3 Visions work, as performed by alumnus Rodolfo Leone from the opening night of our Colburn Artist series. Enjoy. So now we begin our conversation around college admissions. We're going to hear from Annie Bosler on the admissions and selection process, and then Ryan Darke will speak to us about the auditions process. So let's begin with the conversation that I had with Annie Bosler earlier this week. Annie Bosler is an active freelance musician and educator based in Los Angeles. She earned her DMA at USC in 2008 and has since appeared on stage with a variety of artists from Wu-Tang Clan to Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr to John Williams, and she's also performed on the soundtracks for multiple television shows. She's a music researcher and consultant, traveling around the world to lecture on a variety of topics, including wellness for musicians, dealing with performance anxiety, outreach programs in schools, and mapping the brain to the body. As an educator, Annie has taught horn at schools around Southern California, and she spent quite a lot of time teaching right here at Colburn in the Community School of Performing Arts. She is the co-author of the book College Prep for Musicians, a comprehensive guide for students, parents, teachers, and counselors, which has been adapted into an online self-study course being offered in the community school this semester, and the reason that she joins us today as our students are carefully prepping their applications and getting ready for audition season. So welcome, Annie. It's nice to have you on Office Hours.
Thank you for having me here.
I just want to like launch right into the course because there's a lot to cover. My first question is, who is this course for? Like, I assume obviously it's for students, it's for people prepping, but is there an age specific level that we want to start at? Are parents welcome to join? Could a parent take it alongside a student? Yeah, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, no, the course is designed for students basically from middle school to high school. So we love it when we see students joining that are as young as sixth grade, because you can never start to think about this whole process, too early, in my opinion. My kind of interesting background that got me into really this passion for college prep is that I didn't start the process until I was in a senior in November of my senior year. So honestly, you can't get much later. Any parent that comes and says, we're starting this process way too late, I'm like, well, what, where, what year is your child in school? And I'm like, no, 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 we did it. My parents and I, and very fortunate to have very supportive parents, took me around Thanksgiving of my senior year. So it is designed for all students of all ages from sixth grade, middle school basically, to high school. And it's for anyone that's interested in an area of music. So it can go any direction, whether that's performance or composition or music theory, or I'm sorry, well, music composition, or if anybody's interested in music law or music medicine, I mean, it can, or music education. The course is designed for any area of music for someone that wants to major in that degree. And I would even say folks that have taken music lessons, obviously, a lot of folks will have taken them if they're looking at the video from Colburn, but if they've taken music lessons, something that all parents and students should know about is there's a thing called a supplemental application or supplemental material that should be attached with your college application. And that's a really important piece for anyone that has taken lessons, because you can submit basically a supplemental material along with your application of you performing, and it really gives your application weight. So if you're applying to any other area outside of music, say the humanities or the sciences or whatever area, it's a really important thing to know that you can submit a supplemental application with your material, or supplemental material with your application, I should say, and that is something that taking years of lessons can allow you to do. So I think it's something parents should know. We touch on it in the course, and there's a lot of other things in the course actually that will apply to just the general population, meaning applying to a general degree program, and so that might be something that parents might want to watch. I think Dr. Kathleen Tizar, who's speaking from the admissions perspective within our course, she gives a whole module on financial aid, and I think that one's really important no matter what area of music what area that you're planning to major in.
So this really covers, a broad range of considerations around like the college admissions process.
Yeah, it definitely does. We started out, from just trying to, what to think about if you're planning to major in music, or, trying to pick your degree program. And then we go really into depth about how to choose your schools. One of kind of my part of the course is that I actually tackle it from the teacher and student perspective. And so we look at how to choose your schools, We look at how to narrow down that list, and then we also take a really in-depth perspective into something that I've developed called the application matrix, which is kind of my big specialty piece for the course. And so it's a four-part kind of tiered system that I come up with and use with all my personal students, but we present it in a way that now students can use it to help them narrow down all of their schools, which is something really important. And obviously, even now during the pandemic, it's something to understand because there's a lot of variables and factors that are actually taking place, because of the pandemic in terms of just applying to schools.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a completely different landscape right now, I think, for everybody. I think it's interesting that you touched on the notion of using this supplemental materials as a way to support even applications to other majors. I know that this course is very specific to people, I assume, applying to music programs, but would you also recommend it to someone who is a musician but just looking at college generally?
I definitely would. And I'm not saying like every module would be something you would need to watch, but we tried to do a good job of outlining what's there by just reading the module titles or the lecture titles. There's 6 modules and 17 lectures throughout the course. So there's a lot of material. And so, there might be some pieces you might want to look at how to choose schools because it might give you a better perspective on what you could do for yourself. But when you're looking at the financial aid piece or the financial aid module of the course, I think that applies to everybody because Dr. Tizar will present different things like how to understand your letters, or how to also how to kind of understand the admissions process behind it as well. And it really does apply to all areas, no matter what your degree program is.
You kind of started to touch on it a little bit about like the format of the course. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about what someone who enrolls can expect? Are there like term papers? Is there a ton of homework? Is this going to like add to the load right now, or is this very much just sort of like informational and like lecture driven?
Yeah, it's kind of multiple pieces. I think it depends on where you are in the process. So, if you're somebody who's a senior right now and you've got a lot on your plate, obviously you're hopefully probably already if you're applying to music schools, you're either working your portfolio depending on what area you're going into, or your audition and pre-screening material depending on what area you're going into, and then obviously tons of applications. So, I think the important thing is that there are a lot of lectures. There's a lot of things to download. There's a lot of things to dive into, like Excel spreadsheets and different templates that you can use within the course. But I don't think it should be something to feel overwhelmed about. It's more meant to, let's say you're a younger student, you would go through all the material, take what you can take, and then hopefully it'd be something you'd come back and watch in a different year, if that makes sense. So it's like you would take what kind of fits right now and then move forward. If you're someone that is a senior, I would hope that you probably have somebody maybe watching it with you, say a parent or a guardian or a family member or friend, just because there is a lot of information. And so and you're obviously deep in the process already, and so it's important to have just kind of be organized about everything. And so I would just say if you could have somebody watch it with you and take notes and help you take notes, then you could easily kind of tackle everything there. So it's not meant to be an overwhelming course by any stretch. It's more meant to be, this is a lot of material and some things that you might want to watch twice. That's why we felt like the online piece was really important. And then you could also download things, work on it, come back and watch some stuff again. But it's meant to take you through the whole process from start to finish so that you feel that you've gotten, basically had someone to help you along the way. That's what, to be quite honest, my passion is, because I didn't have anyone really helping me along the way. And even 3 degrees later, after, doing this once for an undergrad, once for a master's, and once for a doctorate, I still felt like I missed pieces along the way. So I think just understanding the process from start to finish is helpful.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I didn't have a ton of support. And actually like working on the other side of things, I used to work at UCLA, and I've worked in like music education kind of generally, and like sometimes from the administrative side you get so wrapped up in understanding that side of the process that you don't always communicate it that well to the applicants. And so it's nice to sort of to consider both sides of it, to be able to like sort of pull back the curtain a little bit for students.
Yeah, no, I
um,
definitely agree. And we're our goal is really to give tips and tricks that will help and I think once you understand all perspectives, and there's one other lecture we haven't discussed, which is Dr. Don Green. So he brings in a really important piece, which I think is useful for all students, no matter what area you're going into, honestly, because he talks about just nerves. And so he talks about it when it applies to exams. So if you're taking high school, just everyday exams in every class, or ACT, SAT, if you're going to a school that's requiring that. And so he discusses that, plus just how to deal with nerves for auditions, for recitals. It's a really, important piece of the process that I think doesn't always get discussed about, especially in maybe middle school and high school.
Yeah, that's all very helpful, I think. This is kind of like a weird side question, but would any of this apply to somebody looking towards grad school? I mean, you mentioned that there were
Oh
students
yeah.
that
So
you could
so
apply
it,
to.
I mean, we've kind of tackled it from the, more of the high school perspective, but I will say if you're someone that's a transfer student, someone that is going to look at a master's program, I have so many students that call and then say, well, can we talk to you about this or that, because we don't feel like we did the process correctly the first time, and so they'll watch it, but watch it from a master's perspective, or someone that's applying for the master's program, and all of the material really truly applies. The only thing that really switches are some of the deadlines, and so that's really the only piece that changes. So if you can just watch the course from that perspective too, say you are someone looking at a master's program or even a transfer student, a lot of the information is helpful in the course.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Having just applied to grad school myself, I'm also like, oh, this sounds great.
What, I'm asking what area you applied for.
Oh, I'm doing a master's in musicology now at Long Beach.
No way, that's awesome. That's what my husband teaches horn there.
Oh,
That's
really?
awesome. Yeah.
Oh man, we'll be in touch then. Um, what a different semester, by the way, like to not have music on campus. It's been an interesting first semester of grad school, I'll say that much. I wanted to, we talked before this interview about questions that you get frequently, and there were two that you brought up that I think are really important to cover. And again, if you have any other questions that pop in your head that you get like, oh, I want to talk about this question, I always get, feel free. But I wanted to start with um, the families that are getting ready to apply, but are kind of on the fence about a music program or about how to incorporate music into their students' education. What do you say to them about the value of a music degree, but then also the other ways that music can maybe be implemented into their education?
That's a fantastic question. So, I'll give you a tiny bit of my own background first, and then I'll answer your question. But so I grew up on a farm in South Carolina. Farming mother, general contracting father, so construction. Father working in the construction industry, and also a glass etcher. And so, I'm the only kid, and so they were just, what do we do with this music kid? And so I think if there's any parent out there that feels that way, um, my advice is this is honestly the course, the material for you, and that's quite honestly when we wrote our book, College Prep for Musicians. That's also, it was really designed for the student or the parent who really knows nothing about this degree or degree area. And so, my dad, looking back on my degree in music, and it's something he tells me all the time, is he said, no matter what, you can say, like, look at all the cool places you've been because of music. Look at all the cool people you've met because of music. And I think that that's a really true thing. So I think for any parent that's kind of, questioning the degree or the career of music, it's understandable. But the advice I would give to you and your child is to try to make yourself super, super versatile in this field. And so I think the performance program, I think if you're interested in performance, or quite frankly, any degree area, I think within music, I think it's a gateway. I think it's a gateway to a career. And so I often tell parents and students, think of the word music as an adjective and drop it in front of most professions. So you've got, music industry, music business, music law, music medicine, we could go on and on and on. It's a really interesting thing to see how many careers there are within the field of music. And so I don't think of, the performance degree as a stopping point. I think of it more as a gateway. And so, and or any other area of music. So if you can use those skills you'll get, like history and theory and solfege and ear training and, on and on, it's they're skills that you can use to talk the talk and walk the walk. So if you wanted to produce some major artists in the future, you can say, oh, you're flat here, you're sharp here. And not everybody can necessarily do that because maybe they have a different path or different degree, or different path to get to that career. So I think it's a really important piece to understand where you can go with with music as your degree. And so, what I would encourage parents and students to do is to really, take this seriously, and don't think of it as like, needing a backup, or a backup plan or something like that, but say, I'm going to devote the hours to it that it needs, and let it take me where I can. And in the process of that, make yourself as versatile as you can. Take computer classes, take writing classes, take business classes, and really try to make yourself, on paper and as a professional, have a lot of skills that you can use, throughout your whole career.
I mean, I think there's a lot of like very specialized fields that you make obviously like make sense to go into, like, music law or music therapy. It's like very specific to it. But I've also found that, if you're interested in working just sort of like tangentially in the arts somehow, having that background in music can really push you over the edge in terms of your consideration as a candidate for a job. So if you wanted to work in a nonprofit that specialized in performing arts, are you a more appealing candidate because you can talk very fluently about, the history of opera, and sometimes that's like very much the
Yeah,
case. So
I completely agree with you. I mean, just, I spent, honestly, I spent 8 years working in residential life at Colburn. And so, just even understanding the ins and outs of the students at the school, plus having, the administrative side as well, that to me was really important. And I think just, anybody that wants to even go into any administrative job within the arts, first of all, I think it's really useful to have that information. And second of all, that's why, for me, I was a joint degree major as a start at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. I did math and music, and then I also played on the tennis team. So it was like, there, that's, to me, that was my start. And it wasn't, the math wasn't a choice because it was a backup by any stretch, but it was a passion. And so, but honestly, as I kind of got deeper into my degree program, I actually realized I wanted to practice more than go study, in the library. So for me, it kind of swung back to, I switched out and just did a major in music. But I think for parents, it's important to realize, that at that point when you can choose these different things, if your child is really passionate about it, like, go for it. And like you're saying, you could use it. It's like you can really use those skills in so many areas, and administration being one. Whether you want to go into, academia and do administration within that, or if you want to go into, say, an orchestra administrative job. I mean, I think we need more people in our field that understand both sides of the coin, just what business and music, quite frankly.
yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, this is more maybe on like a personal level, but and I'm sure this doesn't apply equally to everybody, but I always felt that music, like practicing and being critiqued and reworking things, really taught me how to sort of self-reflect and take constructive criticism and learn about what kinds of criticism works and how to then provide it to others. So I think it is just kind of like, I mean, maybe I'm just over glamorizing it, but I do feel like there's a lot of like problem solving, real world problem solving and relationship applications that
No,
you
I'm
from a music
yeah,
degree.
I think you're 100% right. I mean, honestly, like, for anybody that can, I mean, for French horn, anybody that can take, one of our big excerpts and figure out how to make it sound good, and the hours it takes to perfect it, and, just get stuff just right. And, or to perform under pressure, or to speak in front of people. I mean, there's just so many skills you learn as a musician that, um, you don't think about, or writing a bio, or having to do, a resume, or whatever that, we have to have for our industry. I think those things just bleed over into all forms of life. But I think that, like you're saying, the practice and the dedication it takes, and the hours you spend in honestly, a white walled room working on your craft, is a really important skill set. And that's, I think, what my dad, quite honestly, when he was, saying before, like, look at all the places it's taking you, and look at all the people you've met. I think that that's a really important piece. Is also look at the life skills you've learned, on how to practice and how to perfect something, and how to master, whatever it is you're mastering, but or learn, or trying to master. I think all those things are really important to just life skills in general.
Yeah, I I agree, very much so. So you going back to a previous comment about like the timing of of thinking about preparing for a college admissions, and you mentioned it's never really too early to start. It's always good to sort of be thinking about it. I want to close this conversation asking you about what advice you would give to those maybe in your position, like almost November, haven't really thought it through yet. Like what can be done at this very, very late moment in time?
Yeah, so I think if you're someone who was in my, shoes where it was November of your senior year and you're kind of scrambling, what do I want to major in? I for me it was a simple question, what do I like? What do I enjoy? And I think that's really really important. And you don't really understand in this moment, as Thanksgiving or almost sorry, you don't really understand in this moment what where this will lead you. And so I think the advice I would say is follow your passion. Don't let it don't let the process overwhelm you, because it is there's so many pieces to an application in general that you need to kind of go through. So I would say just look at your passion, look at where you want to go. There's a bunch of questions you can kind of ask yourself. How big of a school do I want? How small of a school do I want? Do I want to live in a hot weather place, a cold weather place, and how close to home do I want to be? How far away from home do I want to be? um, you know don't even necessarily look at the tuition package right now, like how much does it cost, because that doesn't really get taken care of until really you see what the numbers are from the school. So you could be getting a lot of scholarship or no scholarship, or aid or no aid. It just depends on how this what the school has to offer. So I would look at mostly like what is my passion. um, Answer some kind of basic questions, and then start to kind of look at places that fit those questions. And so if that is the case where you're later in your senior, you're looking at this puzzle, I would just say just kind of go with your gut and apply to a few places and see what happens. And quite honestly, that's what I did. And then I picked the place that was best for me based on all the kind of things that were important to me. And then that kind of jump started everything. And it's like you kind of can't see where you're going to end up or what you're going to be doing until you just navigate some of those big questions. So I think that that's an important part of the process. I don't think there's any like one specific answer, but I would just say just really ask yourself what you enjoy, and I think that will lead to hopefully many other things. That's at least
Yeah,
how I've lived my career so far. So
I feel like it rings true with this saying that I really like, which is you don't know what you don't know, right? So focus on what you do know, what you like, the things that you want to see in the coming years, and then, it's a little bit of a guess after that, right?
yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah.
Well, this has been a really fun conversation. Thank you for joining me on Office Hours, pre-recorded, of course. I hope to have you back. And for anyone interested, when does the class officially open?
So the enrollment is open now through the CSPA. You can sign up. Just contact the CSPA office, and they will get you enrolled in the course. We are offering some live sessions in addition to the recorded sessions, the online course, and that our next one is actually this coming Sunday. So November the 1st, and it's at 3 o'clock. And you just have to be enrolled through the CSP office to get all of the information for that. But we'd love to have more folks enrolled, parents, students. It's as far as I know, there's still several spots available.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it.
And now it's time for another interlude. Our next performance comes from the vault. This is Conservatory piano student Nadia Atzi performing Chopin's Nocturne for Piano, Opus 48, number 1, at a performance forum back in October 2018. Enjoy. So now we'll continue with our admissions-focused conversation. Just before the performance, we heard a little bit about preparing for the application process from our last guest, Annie Bosler, and now we're going to hear more about the audition process from Conservatory alumnus Ryan Darke. He sat down with us earlier this week just before another interview with my coworker who is working on the professional development micro courses for the Conservatory. So if you're affiliated with the Conservatory, keep an eye out for those. But since we only had a short window with him, I'm going to give you his bio now before we get started. So Ryan Darke received his professional studies certificate in trumpet performance at the Colburn School in 2011. He also has a master's degree from Rice University and a bachelor's degree from Cal State Long Beach. He is currently principal trumpet of the Los Angeles Opera Orchestra and a member of the brass faculty at Cal State Long Beach. He also is an educator around the Southland, and he's a committed mentor, regularly working with aspiring musicians as they navigate the world of professional music. All right, so welcome, Ryan. Thank you for joining us. I know your time is brief, so I'll keep it very short. We're here today to talk about the audition part of the college admissions process for our families that are getting ready for that cycle. I mean, some of them may be right on the cusp of it, some of them might be a few years out, but I wanted you to start by telling us a little bit about your experience with auditions as a student, as a performer, and maybe most vital to this conversation as an educator and administrator.
Right, okay. That's a lot to talk about, but try to keep it brief and kind of a little perspective on it. You know, when I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking that this is an exciting time. This shouldn't be something that you're concerned about or worried about. Wherever you're at is where you're at in this time. You don't need to be better than you are now, and you don't need to judge whether you're better than the next person or what level you're at compared to your colleagues or future colleagues. Wherever you're at is fine. You want to find an institution that fits what you need. Some teachers are going to work better. You should always try to get lessons with them ahead of time if you can before you choose a school. Some schools are going to provide an environment that has maybe you're interested in jazz and you want to make sure that you go to an institution that has a jazz ensemble for you to join, or a music industry program or something like that. Or maybe you're really, really sure that you want to be a classical player and you can go focus your efforts at a conservatory. So everyone's going to have different needs and different demands, and it's going to click with teachers in a different way. And since we're primarily talking about undergraduate education here, I've been saying the same thing for about a decade now, and that's that in your undergraduate, you want to make sure that you have a teacher that's going to cultivate and build you up from a technical standpoint, obviously in a musical standpoint as well. But I think the teacher is like of primary importance for an undergraduate degree. The ensembles need to be good enough that you can use it as a laboratory and a test facility, but I think grad school is where you really want to make sure that your playing has evolved to a high enough level in undergraduate so that you have amazing ensembles to then sharpen your knives and refine your ensemble skills, and then that will like catapult you into a professional group, hopefully. In undergraduate, if you go to a place that has really, really, really great ensembles, but your skills aren't up to the level and you're kind of just pushed to the lower groups, you're not even reaping the benefits of those amazing ensembles. And if you go there chasing a name or an institution name and you're not even really sure about that teacher, you could end up in a really awkward position. So just make sure they really know who their teacher is, because that's going to be of primary importance for their undergraduate degree.
That's great. That's really helpful. And you've been on sort of the administrative side of audition panels for undergraduate admissions, right? So you have good experience as to what you guys might be looking for among these students.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah. You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, when we're listening to auditions, we're listening for like, let's just start with the obvious. We're talking about talent, right? Whatever talent is, we need to hear 5% talent or 10% talent. We need to hear some kind of like inner voice, musical voice, conviction. Something needs to be there. A lot of technical things we look past. So it's a lot more about the attitude and the conviction and the musicality. And if this person feels like they love what they're doing, that's what I look for. Because if someone loves what they're doing and is passionate about it, they'll put in the time to fix whatever little technical thing, whatever little embouchure thing needs to change. I have a few students who have changed their embouchures in the last couple of years, and within 6 months they were playing 5 times better than when they came in. They came in and they took a step way back, and now they're catapulted forward because they had to do some technical changes. But I saw their attitude in lessons and in their audition, and I was like, okay, this person's attitude is strong enough and positive enough that they can take what I'm about to give them. So, keep in mind, it's not just about how well you play that Mozart concerto, or how clean your scale is, or how in tune it is. That stuff matters, but not really. It's a small piece of the pie. The attitude, how you talk to the committee, how you adjust to things they ask you to do. If people say, hey, we'd like to hear this again, but can you please try it like this? Don't freak out and think they don't like you. That means we want to see how flexible you are. We really like what you're doing, and maybe it's exactly what we want, but we're going to ask to see if you can change, to see if you're a malleable student that we can work with and inflexible. So, whenever anyone asks you to play something again, be really encouraged, because that committee doesn't have a lot of time. They've usually been there all day. They're usually exhausted. If they're asking to hear it again, that means they really like what they're hearing, and they just want to see. They're like, okay, now let's see if this person's malleable and flexible and has a good attitude, and how they respond to this pressure.
Oh, that's really helpful, because I don't know, if I were in an audition process and someone asked to hear it again, I would wonder if that was that they were not sure about what they heard, if they were expressing concern, I guess, on performance.
In the real world auditions, if they ever ask you to do something again, especially a conductor, it means they're interested.
That's really helpful. So I like this kind of this level of tip. Is there something that, as someone auditioning, you might misinterpret? Are there certain quirks about the audition process, or about things that the panel might ask that the students should be thinking about as they prepare for these auditions?
Yeah, so a few things. So if people look like they're dying, dead, tired, they probably are. And it doesn't mean they're not listening. They could be like this, and sometimes I've caught myself like this, and just writing wow, great sound. So don't look at the body image. If they're sitting back like this or tired, if you happen to be able to see the committee, don't let them talking while you're playing distract you. They could be saying, wow, she really got a great sound, good talent, I'd like to work with her. It could be like that, it could be them whispering things like that, not like, oh my God, that's so out of tune, oh my goodness, did you hear that? We don't have time or energy. We've heard enough bad auditions. We're not going to be talking and chatting and excited about that. If you see them writing, it's usually positive. If it's a no's are like a quick check, and yeses are exciting talking noise. So when there's noise going on or commotion, don't think, oh wow, they're not listening, or they're not paying attention, or maybe they're talking about me. That's good. So that's a positive. If they start asking you about your repertoire or your experience, and you don't have positive answers, I had a teacher once be like, so what's your solo repertoire like? And I was like, well, this, and this. No. Unaccompanied trumpet solo. Like, I've never played an unaccompanied piece. I felt kind of embarrassed. But that teacher was just like, okay, you should look at this and this. And he was just trying to push me in the right direction with repertoire that he wanted to see me add to my tool set. It wasn't like attacking me, and he ended up wanting to work with me. So yeah, just know that these people, us teachers, myself included, we don't want to hear bad auditions, and we don't get happiness from saying negative things to students. We don't want to make students feel badly. And if they're talking to you, that's mostly because they want to help you.
It's not like you guys are rooting against the people that are auditioning.
No, never.
Yeah.
Never. We're always pulling, and we're always trying to talk to students, and you can tell a lot from a school you're auditioning at by how they treat the students. And at Cal State Long Beach, where I teach now, I also taught at U of A, and I taught OSHA, and I've done a lot of different auditions. Now Colburn. You can always tell the attitude of the teacher to a degree by how they greet you and how they try to make you feel calm, if they take the time to do that. And you can tell a lot about your future potential mentors by whether they walk in and they're like, oh, kid looks nervous, let's see what he's got. That says something about that environment. And maybe that's an environment that's super competitive, and maybe you want to be in that, but maybe you want someone who's like, all right, take a deep breath, don't worry, we want you to sound good. And we always say these things to our students when they're auditioning, trying to make the environment as relaxed as possible. So you can learn even a little bit about the process from your audition experience, either whether it's over Zoom now or in person.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's easy to forget, right? That there's a little bit of an interview going both ways, right? If you feel like you're meshing with the general vibe of the faculty, and whether they're meshing with you.
Yeah, I absolutely. Absolutely. I can't tell you how many students come to me and I'm like, all right, now it's my time to sell what I have to offer because I want to work with this kid, you know.
Right. Oh yeah.
Um, but most, don't forget to get a lesson. You could do it after the auditions. Like, say, it went well, you suspect you're going to get in. You could ask them if you could have a lesson after the fact. You can also do it before. It's not an appropriate task before. I mean, if you get an hour to work with somebody, you really know how flexible they are, dive into their skills on a much deeper level. You really get to know the student. I've done like 3 or 4 of those recently with incoming prospective freshman students, and you learn so much more from a lesson than you can in an audition. So yeah, it's totally appropriate to ask for a lesson. No one will ever turn you away.
When does that typically happen, right? Does that happen after you've applied and before you received a request for audition? Does it happen before the application? Like when I guess would you want to hear from students, and when do you usually hear from students?
That's a good question. There's a very clear answer to me. If you ask before, like the students that have played for me recently, I expect to hear progress now, from their lesson into the audition tape. And if I don't hear progress, there's a big red flag raised. So if you do take the lesson, listen, record it, listen back, and make the adjustments, because we want to hear that you listened. We want to hear that you adjusted. We don't want to go through 4 years of us telling you information and it staying the same. Okay, so that's the danger there. So yeah, it's hard. You gotta pick and choose your battles. I always take lessons to learn, not to win. I make a list of what I want to get better at and present it to the teacher. And I would always opt to 3 months early. I think the thing you don't want to do is play 2 weeks before the audition, or even a month, because then they critique you. You don't have proper time to make technical changes or musical changes and really assimilate them into your playing. And then they're like kind of having the lukewarm feeling about you still. Do it early on, let them hear a massive improvement, and then accept or decline the school.
Do you think like
or
the application is that when like you would want to hear the student the first time?
I think so. I think if I'm advising the parents and the students, I would say before, because then say you really want to go to Cal State Long Beach and you want to get in our trumpet studio. We take like 1 out of every 4 undergraduate trumpet students, and maybe you're right on the cusp, and maybe taking the lesson in October or November is what's going to be the difference between you getting accepted or not, based off of those, the progress that you made preemptively. So I don't know. I think, in my opinion, it should be before. You can definitely do it after the fact, though. And if, like, say you get into 2 or 3 schools, you're just really not sure, that's an appropriate time to play for people as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So going back to you've mentioned now a few times, like in a virtual environment, and I assume that a lot of auditions for this coming cycle will be in a virtual environment. So can you shed any light on the conversations that you're having as an educator that are going on that side of things about how these auditions might unravel in a virtual space?
Yeah, it does look like they're going to be virtual. Okay, if you have to make a recording, if you have to make a DVD, if you have to make a digital recording, pre-recorded, it needs to be excellent. It needs to be you playing on your very best day with your very best sound, with your very best musicality, as amazing as you possibly could play it, possibly better than you thought you could play it. Not like 80%, not 95%, not 94%. 100% of your ability level needs to be on that tape. What does that mean? That means that you need to schedule 7 to 10 days of recording over a 2-week span, and record for an hour or an hour and a half, 2 45-minute sessions, and break it up. Don't kill yourself. Do 2 30-minute sessions a day for 2 weeks. And that way, when you're having an off day, if you say you schedule, okay, well, it's due on Friday, so I'm going to start recording on Tuesday. Oh man, my chops are bad on Tuesday. Now I'm really beat up because I played too much on Tuesday, so Wednesday's out. And now I come back Thursday, and I'm a little out of shape and weird because I've just been doing all these audition recordings. And now it's Friday. I got to submit something. So start 2 3 weeks out. Sorry, that's my dog. So start 2 or 3 weeks out and really give yourself multiple days to happen so that you can put your best foot forward. Okay.
And in terms of like live virtual, first of all, it's totally fine to hear your dog. I always love when I hear pets on these recordings. But yeah, in terms of like Are you guys thinking about doing live virtual auditions? Is that something that's a possibility?
Yeah, and we also did live virtual placement auditions, so we still are getting to hear our students and know where they would sit ensembly and assign them groups for when we are back, or if we can do chamber music in the fall, which hopefully we will be able to, if not the spring. So yes, we have done that, and I would say that you want to take the time for both pre-recorded and in person to open up your QuickTime on your computer, and do it on your computer and have a USB microphone. Don't do it with your internal microphone. Just don't. Unless you can't afford it, then that's fine. Then do it and we'll understand. But if you can afford an external microphone, you can get them from $60 to $350 or something. I really like the Hype Mic by Apogee. It plugs in your iPhone, your iPad, or your computer. It's a USB mic. I have fancier mics that I use. It's not necessary. You can also use a Zoom H2 or H4 or HQN or any of those devices plugged into your computer, the recording devices, and those could act as a microphone for your audition. But open up QuickTime or some video recording application and make sure you listen to all those levels. Make sure your speaking voice, if you're speaking, is loud enough. Make sure your playing isn't distorting. Make sure it looks good. So you really want to make sure you take the time to test that stuff, especially on a live situation. Before every interview or class I teach, I always open up my QuickTime and I talk, and then I play it back. And I make sure that my voice sounds good, my mics are working well, and especially if I have to play and talk, I'm testing levels of everything. And I do it before I launch class or before I have a lesson. And students that take the time to do that really stand out, because you're like, oh, this person is like really serious. So it's all part of that package.
So I know you're almost out of time. I just wanted to see if you had a couple of quick tips for students applying this year and students that might be 1 or 2 years out, just like how to sort of frame the following months or the following years.
If you're coming up to your audition pretty swiftly and you feel a question about your repertoire choices, or you're feeling insecure about something that you wanted to play and it's not really going the way you want, my advice is always to go to the easier repertoire. We don't want to hear you trying and failing. We want to hear you excelling. So if that means taking the repertoire difficulty one click down and sounding masterful, rather than playing something that you think is going to impress us and not really achieving it, always go for the rep that makes you feel comfortable, calm, and you feel musical and expressive through. That would be my immediate short-term advice for if the audition is coming. Make sure your repertoire, like, difficulty doesn't impress. If your audition's coming in a year or a year and a half, this is a great time for you to make those decisions, to start solidifying your rep. And I wouldn't say that you should practice only your audition rep for a year in advance. That's not the idea. But having an idea about 6 months out really is going to help you if you can learn that and refine that and then keep working on your skills. You're going to be all that more familiar when you do come to the audition process. And I would say if you're a year out or a year and a half out, I have a lot of juniors play for me. And I think that is even better than senior year 2 months before the audition, because then I can really check in. I'll play like 1 lesson in the fall, 1 lesson in the spring, and 1 lesson in the next fall. So I get like 2 or 3 lessons leading up to their collegiate admissions. And if you do have that access, which most teachers I will make available to potential students, you get to know the teacher better, so that and making sure that they work well for you can be continued. So that would be something that if you have an eye on a school, especially now, it's a huge opportunity to get a Zoom lesson and just like email them. It's something that you could never do before. So I would take advantage of that.
Well, thank you. That's all incredibly helpful. I won't keep you any longer. I'm glad you were able to make time for this today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And if anyone wants to reach out with questions, I'm always available.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's Virtual Office Hours for October. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you were able to get some helpful college prep tips from our guests. A big thank you to Annie Bosler and Ryan Darke for making time to speak with us this week and take our questions. If you have any more questions for them about the admissions process or auditions, please feel free to email them to me at parents@colburnschool.edu. I'm going to play you out with a stormy and spooky piece by Liszt, as performed by Conservatory piano student Paul Williamson in our recent masterclass with Yocheved Kaplinski. Don't forget to vote next week, and please have a safe and fun Halloween. I'll meet you back here on November 21st at noon. And until then, take care. Bye. you.